What's up, YouTube? I'm Robert, and this is the Biker Channel, B1. Today, you're here for the 12th episode of the BI KER Bar, and I'm really excited to have this episode because we have, luckily enough, Phil from Skills with Phil is here. You know what? I always wonder about your last name. Is the K is silent? Is that what's going on there?
The K is technically silent, but it doesn't matter to me at all if you say Kmetz or Metz. So, honestly, sometimes Kmetz runs off the tongue a little bit better than Metz, so I just run with it.
For the longest time, I was like, every time I go to say it, for some reason, I can see it spelled, and I'm like, you're doing it wrong.
Well, it's funny. One of the reasons why I always say my name at the end of my videos was to try to clarify how my last name was supposed to be said.
Oh no, that's actually a great reason to do that. I mean, that's pretty much why I made my channel name and slogan kind of have B1, so that it was explaining how it was spelled as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Because getting a short URL nowadays is like freaking, you might as well try to find baby Jesus.
Oh, it's impossible.
So what is that? What's the background of that Kmetz name?
I believe it's Czech.
Czech. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Czech.
So my dad was adopted, but he was adopted into more of a Czechoslovakian family, I believe. So I don't fully know too much the history behind it, but I know it's supposed to be from somewhere over there.
Right on. So those of you that may or may not know who Phil Kmetz is, oh wow, I saw the picture in my head again when I said that. Phil's had a popular YouTube channel. It's been around for a while. I think you're how many subscribers do you have now?
I think I'm at 230,000 at this point, somewhere around there.
Wow, just killing it. How long you been doing it?
Well, it depends on in what sense you mean. I started posting videos in, I think, 2013.
Oh, right.
And at the time I was just doing helmet cam runs with crappy GoPro. This is when I was racing professionally, and I came off a season where I had injured myself. And so I was just trying to get some content up there because I'd never filmed myself, didn't know how to use a camera. So I was just just figuring it out. And I knew there was a lot of trails at Highland Mountain Bike Park that nobody had posted videos of. So kind of went out there, just did a bunch of the cool runs and posted those videos up. So I didn't start doing Skills with Phil until 2013. And so I feel like that's when the channel really started. But I'd been kind of experimenting with YouTube in some form since 2013.
Oh, right on. So, and you are, at that time, you said that you were a professional rider. Were you in school at that time as well?
No. So that 2014, the fall of 2014 is when I started school.
Oh, okay.
And so I was 24 when I went back to school.
Oh, cool. So whenever let's go ahead and roll the clock back. When did you get into riding?
I got into riding BMX when I was 5, and I was living in California at the time.
Oh wow, we were out in California.
We were in Huntington Beach.
Oh, cool. And then so that's a big move from the West Coast to the East Coast. You had military family, or just you guys didn't like the sunshine anymore? Or
no, so my dad worked for Pratt & Whitney, the aerospace company, and he changed jobs within the company a few times. And so I was born in Connecticut, lived out in California for a little bit. Then we moved back to the East Coast, and we were there for 2 years, and then we moved to France for 5 years.
Oh, that's really cool. Where out in France did you live?
Toulouse. So that's the southwest corner.
Oh, okay. So towards Spain then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was playing hockey at the time, and we had a few hockey tournaments in Barcelona.
Oh, cool. That's really neat. It's funny the way that life kind of bounces you around,
Yeah.
So how did you get introduced into mountain biking then?
Yeah, so I was without tooting my own horn, but I was a really good BMX racer. And when I was 9 years old, I competed in the World Championships, and I ended up finishing 8th.
Oh wow!
And I when I was racing in France, I finished 3rd in national championships a few times. And a lot of the guys who are some of the best current BMX racers in the world, I used to race with.
Oh,
but
cool.
when I moved back to the US, I moved to New Hampshire, and
Hmm.
there's not much in terms of BMX racing over there. Um, but what we have is a lot of mountains. And so I kind of picked up BMX Park. I went to Camp Woodward for a while, started trying to do the trick stuff. And I was good at going big, but I was not good at doing tricks like bar spins, tail whips. Like that stuff never really clicked for me.
Uh-huh. So can you explain to people what Camp Woodward was?
Yeah, so Camp Woodward is this camp in it's a summer camp in Pennsylvania that actually started out as a gymnastics camp. Um, and it somehow evolved into this like adrenaline fueled, like the place to go. If you skateboard, you rollerblade, you ride BMX, and you go for weeks at a time, and they have like every kind of facility you can imagine for mountain or not mountain biking, but for BMX and skate parks and
So like
um,
foam pits and all kinds of stuff like that.
yeah, many different kinds of film pits, many kind of different resi ramps, and like it's absolutely like it's hard to wrap your head around. It's such an experience.
Huh. What is a resi ramp?
That's so a resi ramp. So think about like it's you build like a base in the like shape of a ramp, but just a little bit smaller out of wood, and then you put a thick piece of foam on top of that platform, and on top of the foam you put like it's like a half-inch piece of plastic,
Oh, okay.
and it's pretty slippery, and it might not exactly be plastic, but I'm going to call it plastic.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Sounds good
so
to me.
like when you land on it, like it's going to absorb some of the impact, so it's not going to hurt as much. And then also because it's slippery, you're not going to cut yourself. You might get like a little bit of a road burn, but you're not going to get like scraped up. So the
Right. So
combination between those two things makes it a pretty good thing to learn new trick.
right, right. Totally makes sense. I think there was something like that on the ramp that you were riding with Seth just recently, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, if you go back to my wheel mill video where I kind of like rode around this indoor bike park, at one point in the video I kind of took a closer look at what a resi ramp is. I kind of showed a foam plus like a little piece of plastic on top.
Oh, cool. So what is it? So at 24, you're racing. You have a racing career, and what made you decide to go to college at that point?
Yeah, so I had been on and off with racing a little bit, and at 20, so at 23, so in 2013, I was actually racing for Evil.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was the first time I'd gotten like a really cool gig, like first time I got a free bike.
Right.
Which is
That's a big deal, right?
it's harder than you think. And
Right.
I had some really good results. I had like a fifth in the national championships. And I was totally privateer at that time. I was really struggling to like get any sort of footing. Like, it's hard to get sponsorship or anything. And like without that kind of support, you can't really, budget all these races. So
Right, because you have to pay like the entrance fee to get into the races and how to get there and all this and that. So it's not cheap.
Exactly. So in 2012, I'm backing up a little bit. I had two like third places in nationals on like big nationals, and I was on the podium with Aaron Gwynn, who is the best racer in the world.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, this is awesome, and I'm going to do my first World Cup. Right before I break my collarbone. I have never broken a bone in my life.
It's a bad time to do it.
Yeah, it sucked. Like I was pretty, I was devastated.
I can imagine. I can totally imagine.
And I healed up from that, and I still had the UCI points because it's actually hard to get into World Cups. You can't just go to a World Cup and race. You have to like qualify for it. And so,
is there like a handful of races that you have to qualify before you can get to there, or is it like you have to win at these nationals, or
you have to do these other events that are races that will get you points, and you need like at the time I think it was 10 or 20 UCI points.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very few races in the US where you could get UCI points.
Oh, wow.
But I got mine at the national championships the year before.
Okay.
So I had the points, and I wanted to use them because you don't get that many opportunities to race World Cups. So I went to Javiel in Norway, and like third practice run, broke my hand, like clipped it on a tree. And so obviously, like I still did my qualifying run. Like I went out all the way out there to race. I might as well like try, but I had a broken hand, so didn't really go that well.
What were you thinking when you started that race, man? Your hand's broken. You're like, you're getting ready to start. And you're like, what the fuck am I doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, like because like I didn't have any like real experience. They throw you in the back of the pack. You're like one of the last people down. It's nerve wracking, and like so it was not a great experience for me. And but I still had some pretty good results that year. So I ended up getting a good sponsorship. That was a sponsorship with Evil the next year. Mm-hmm. And so 2013, right before like the first big race of the year, I break my hand again.
So same thing, just clip a tree or something, go over the
place. Same bone. The bone never fully healed, I guess. And so that's 3 bone breaks in 1 year. And like, I was like, all right, I need to just take some time off and just like, make sure it heals properly. And, when I was out in California with Evo guys, like I kind of picked up onto what the guys are looking for in terms of you being a sponsored athlete. The social media thing. I didn't have an Instagram account at the time. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be like putting myself out on Instagram and all this stuff. Like,
right.
So I kind of picked up on it. I picked up on the sense that he wanted me to be involved in the community. And, like, so when I had a broken hand, I was still trying to like, put on like a local grassroots race series to be involved and just like, still like do my thing. I like being involved in races.
Right.
And yeah, like that year I just like didn't have any really good results, but that's when I started my YouTube channel because I was starting to pick up on things I needed to be doing. And, I love the internet. Like I spent a lot of time on Reddit. So like to me, like, YouTube and that kind of stuff is like where I hung out.
Right.
But I just like, come to the end of the year, like my sponsorship with Evil. Oops.
That's not supposed to happen.
My sponsorship with Evil like fell through, and like I was SOL. It was past the time where you're like the deadlines where you're supposed to get all your paperwork in for sponsorship for next year. I was like, man, like I had a good run with it. I need to like have a backup plan. So actually, this is 2013 going into 2014. I was just like, well, I'm a pretty good racer. I know there are schools that give scholarship money for being on a collegiate cycling team. I'm just going to apply to a school and see if like I can get some money to go back to school and kind of figure out where I need to go next in life. Because obviously your racing isn't going to pay the bills, but
so you're having these broken bones and you're thinking, I need a backup plan.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just not sustainable. There are very few pros who actually make money, like who make a living off of the money they make through racing.
Yeah, I mean, out of the few guys that I've met that have been doing it for a while, most of them have gotten into doing other things other than racing, but that's still sponsorship like driven, So
exactly, and so at that point, I was like, well, I'll just take 2014 to like have fun, figure out what I want to do. And I think I might have done a few videos on like playing around restoring a pump track that I had built in my friend's yard. So like they're more building videos. And it was the first time I was kind of getting YouTube-y, like trying to talk to the camera, which I still suck at to this day. But like I sucked at even worse back then.
It is definitely a there's a certain fear that you need to get over to be able to just take your camera out in front of a bunch of people at a trailhead and just start talking to it.
I can't do that.
Or like walking across, like the other day I was filming, like walking across the street talking about this bike shop that I'm walking into. And it's like, people were walking around shopping. They're like, who is this fucking fat fuck walking around like talking about what's up YouTube,
Yeah, I can't even do that. I don't like doing that kind of stuff. I like to like go off into woods where nobody is, point camera at feature me and the like, and just kind of like showcase like, and if it, like I see hikers or people come by, like I just like look at my phone, like
Yeah.
not
I am
doing anything.
so opposite of almost everybody that I talk to on YouTube. Even like with my voiceovers, it's like I'll take the video and I'll just put it in on the laptop and look at it in the closet while I'm recording, and I'm just talking about it, and I don't write anything, and I just I don't know. I guess that's my one gift that I got, other than being able to drink copious amounts of beer, is just run my fucking mouth.
Well, you've got a great voice. Like you have a really deep, commanding, like, listen to me. Like I think this works for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. My analytics don't say so, but
it's one of those things where it's like especially at the beginning, like it's hard to find where you fit in and like what you're like, what direction you're gonna head.
I think for me, the hardest thing is not judging yourself on your analytics. I think that's really tough.
I go like I like to like I look at numbers and I love to look at like different trends and things, but the more I look at numbers, the more I'm like comparing myself to other people, and the more I hate it. And I just like I've found more lately from a just from like a healthy lifestyle. Like I try not to look at the numbers too much. Like it's not good psychologically, because like
no, definitely not at all. I try not to look at it, but I mean that subscriber counts up there on the page no matter where you go, so you can't get away from that one.
Yeah, man, like it's hard not to like look at the like count and all those things, but like I don't want to have like this shallow existence where I'm just like doing things for likes. Like to me,
there's certain things that I mean, I try not to say like this video and subscribe, and maybe that's part of the reason that I'm not doing as well as I could be, because I'm not shoving that down everybody's throat. But there's like certain things on YouTube that just annoy the shit out of me to hear. So like I don't want to be like contributing to that party. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like before a video even starts, like they're telling you to click that like notification bell, like those things. Like I completely understand why people do that, and I don't necessarily fault them. I just don't like it. So I try not to do it. And
I can say two guys complaining about likes and subs. That's a great live stream, man. So I mean, for me, it's really I think that I lost my train of thought. That's actually what I think happened there. So moving on. So as your channel grew, was there certain stages where you were just like, you couldn't believe it? I mean, I know for me, when I had like 20 subs, I was like walking around my house telling everybody I was famous. They all need to shut up and man, like call me sir from now on.
I think 1,000 was this ridiculously big number that I was like, whoa, I hit it. Like this is insane.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I think Jordan Boostmaster was around, but there was like I hit 1,000 before I started doing the Skills with Phil stuff.
Yeah.
This is just from like helmet cam stuff, and I think to me, like I don't even think GMBN was around at the time. I think Global Cycling Network was around, but I don't think they had broken out into individual channels for different like subgenres of mountain or biking.
Yeah, I wish I would have. When I started the B1KER website, it was. I mean, I bought this domain. It was probably 2013 or so, like that, and I just got hung up in recording videos, and editing got too cumbersome to learn, and I kind of just sat on it for a couple of years. I wish I would have done it then, because honestly, if I would have done what I was planning on doing, I would have been way ahead of the power curve, you know?
Yeah, and like I'd watched, like I had done my homework at the time, because I came from like a background of like I never used a camera. And one of the reasons why I got into like learning how to use a camera is because I was a professional racer on a budget. I couldn't afford to hire somebody to come out with me in the woods and film stuff. So I was trying to figure out how I could do it myself. Like, how can I do this on a budget?
Right.
And like, it was hard to find cameras that did like 1080p at 60 frames per second at the time, or like even like any cameras that did 60 frames per second. And I knew like I wanted to do some slow-mo shots. And so I was just like learning all about that stuff. And so through like watching other YouTube channels around cameras and filmmaking, I learned that there was like a community, like there's this community aspect around cameras. I was like, whoa, no one's done this for biking yet. And like, so that's the thing that like really like got me going. Like, I don't know if like mountain bikers are internet savvy enough at this point, because this is like back when smartphones were still like starting, like not quite as popular. So no one had really like embraced the internet like it is now. Like it's crazy how much has changed in like so little time. But
yeah, it's definitely come a long way, especially in the last couple of years.
And like, so I didn't even know if it was going to be possible to do something with that in the mountain bike community. And so, I was like, I still think there's potential. And I didn't know what direction I was going to go. And I was still racing at that time, because when I went back to school, I started, I did collegiate racing, and I ended up winning collegiate nationals in both downhill and dual slalom.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, maybe I should still do this racing thing, because like the guys who I was racing against in collegiate nationals were some of the best racers on the pro circuit as well. Just because of how it's not an NCAA sport, so, and because you're not really getting paid as a racer, there's no conflict with NCAA, because it's not part of USA Cycling oversees the collegiate aspect of racing. I know that like question gets asked quite a bit. How does like professional racer race collegiate? It's like we're professional, but we're more or less professional category, not like a professional, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So what did you decide to go to school for?
Business and marketing. I wanted to end up in the bike industry somehow. Like, I didn't know what. I just knew like I like bikes. I wanted to do something fun. Like, I'm not like a number cruncher, so engineering was out of it. So I figured I'd try to do something related to marketing.
So at the time, you said your channel was pretty like not non-existent actually at that point. So you weren't really picking a college career based off of like this newfound thing YouTube that you were doing.
I wasn't sure yet. Because I entered school, and I think I probably had like 1,000 subscribers, which I still thought was a big deal. But I didn't like know where to go with it. I hadn't done a like tutorial video yet. Like the idea of Skills with Phil hadn't been born yet.
Right.
And so in 2015, I started racing again, because like someone like saw my results at the national championships, and they're like, "Hey, we'll give you a ride. Like, we'll help you out." And so I did a national. I had a really good result. Like, kind of came out of nowhere, and people were like, "Oh, where did he come from? I thought he stopped racing." And so after that race, before the next one, I was like, well, I have some time to kill. I'll try to do a tutorial. Like, I don't know, I've never done a tutorial, but I'll take the time to try to figure out how to make a tutorial on a subject that I've always found frustrating, because the videos don't explain things the way I think they should be explained.
Right. Everybody has their own way of learning things. So when you're looking to learn something, if people aren't telling it to you the way that you're receptive to, then you're like, well, they're doing it wrong.
Yeah. and so like I went out and did that like how to manual video, because that was a skill that had always frustrated me, because I for like picking up your front wheel like is one thing, holding a manual is what I couldn't do.
Right.
Like, I could hold it for like across like the top of a jump, but I couldn't hold it and just lock into a manual for like a minute. Like, that's something I never like could understand how to do. And I've kind of like at the time, like through making the video and like leading up to it, I had finally figured it out. So I made that tutorial on it. And because at the time, like I was posting on Reddit quite a bit, I credit a lot of my the stuff that I know thanks to Reddit, because it's, since like 2000, it's like 2009 I've been on Reddit. I freaking love it. And I was like, I'll post it to RMTB. Like, I've always been kind of involved in like that subreddit since it had like 400 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so like I've been part of like that mountain bike subreddit for a while, but like, I'd post like sporadically. And so I was like, I'll post that video, see if people like it. And like, I came back within like a few hours, and like people were just eating it up. And like, man, like this video is awesome. Like I was like, whoa. And like at that time, my like subscriber count like jumped to 3,000.
You're like, oh wow, I did something right.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, I just tapped into something here.
Right.
But at the same time, like I was still racing professionally. So not too long later, I finally did another World Cup, and at that World Cup, I qualified 23rd, which was insane. Like, as and someone who doesn't really, who never qualified for a race, World Cup, I qualified 23rd, and it was like my goal was just to qualify, and
right.
so that like whole thing was just like it blew my mind.
Right.
So
you're super
in my race run, I ended up crashing, but my one claim is I had in sector 2. So if you have a race course and you have split time, so you have like a split time, let's say 1/3 of the way down, and a second split time 2/3 of the way down, to kind of gauge where you're. So sector 2 is between split 1 and split 2.
Right.
In that section, I had the 8th fastest time of the day.
Right on. So
like,
you were stoked. You're hauling ass.
Yeah, I was going faster than people who I just like idolize. I was like, holy crap! Like, okay, cool, I can go fast. And then that was kind of the end of like racing. I still raced after that, but I had proven to myself the one thing I cared like about, like, how do I stack up against some of these guys?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew I was never going to be the best racer in the world. I just wanted to see if I was comparable.
Yeah.
And
Are
I
you
did
kind
that.
of known for taking some like little bit wilder lines than some people, a little more straight lines?
So in 2015, I was kind of rolling the dice way more. I was taking more chances than a lot of people. And there were a few lines that I did that like people were just like, I'm not touching that.
Right. I remember seeing some kind of video or something like that, and they were talking about that, or maybe it was you talking about it or something like that, just where you were just hitting shit like straight on, where people were like, that's just stupid. But you were like, you had some kind of background. I don't remember what it was that you were talking about. I think you were just saying you were just used to kind of going for it like that.
Yeah, like, so this is Mammoth. Mammoth had like this one section that they called the Widowmaker. As it sounds, it's not a very friendly place. Like, it was really awkward. Like, it was a double like step down, like 2 like 4-foot drops like right in a row. And they're really awkwardly timed. And like it was really hard to go fast over them, and like everyone was struggling with it. But you had like this compression before it. And like, it's hard to remember how far like the distance was, but like it was pretty far back. There was this little piece of cambered ground that you could potentially land on, but like right in front of it, there was some more nasty rocks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to go for this line, you had to commit and you had to get it perfect. If you made it, you'd be good. If you messed up, you'd be like taken out on a stretcher.
Yeah.
And so I walked up and I'm like, I think I can hit this, but I was like trembling. I was like, I just need to like go into this, commit, and just send it. I just kind of like envisioned myself doing it, and like, I don't know how many people were around at the time, but everyone was looking. There's a few people looking at that section. I just went into it, sent it, perfect. I was like, holy crap, I did it.
Yeah.
On one of my next practice runs, one of the people who was looking at that section was Aaron Gwynn. And he saw me do it, and I finished my practice lap, and he came down sometime later behind me, and like, he's usually a pretty reserved person. He came over to me, and I've never really talked to him, but he was like, "Dude, that was like the bossest line I've ever seen."
Yeah, right on, man.
And so like that was like pretty humbling experience, like to have him tell me that. Like it was pretty cool, and I still look back at that as like one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah. I think that, really being called out by somebody that you probably, still would look up to, like that's definitely makes you feel good, right?
Absolutely. And like, he's, I still watch racing, and he's like, it's so much fun to watch him race. Like, so I don't know, just that one interaction, like really kind of like is one of the reasons why he's my favorite racer.
Yeah. Are you still racing?
I don't. It's not that I wouldn't race if I have the opportunity. I like, it's been on my mind to try doing another race here and there, whether it's downhill or even like, someone put the bug in my like ear to actually try and do a EWS race. And so I wouldn't like rule that out. It's just the stress that came from racing sucks, because it takes something you love doing and then makes it not fun.
Yeah. When I go riding with one of my buddies, and I'm doing the channel and stuff, he always says to me, you don't make mountain biking a job, dude, because then it won't be fun anymore,
Yeah.
I always think about that, it's always on the back of my mind. You don't want to do that.
No, I mean, like, a lot of the racers, it is their job. So like it's, pretty kick-ass job, but at the end of the day, there's still some qualities about it where it's like, if you don't get a good result, you might not be getting a paycheck the next year. You might have to find a different kind of career path.
Yeah. That's a lot of stress to be carrying. That's for sure.
So it's one of those things where it's a dog eat dog kind of world out there. It's like, it's hard. It's hard to sustain a long career in racing.
So you're getting close to being wrapped up with school?
I'm done with school. I graduated in May.
Oh, right on, dude.
I never I didn't go to graduation. I once I had my last class, I just packed up all my stuff and left.
Right on.
I don't know. I'm not really big on celebrating things.
Yeah, I didn't do that when I graduated either. I actually just didn't give a fuck. I mean, honestly, I did the work. That's all that really mattered to me.
Yeah, I mean, my mom wasn't going to be able to come down and attend. My dad obviously had passed away. My sister lives out of the country, so it was one of those things where it's like Haley was up in Vermont. I'm like, I don't really know what the point of walking across the stage is. Like, I just want to go home and ride bikes and see Haley and whatnot. So yeah.
Right. So where were you going to school at?
It was in Western North Carolina, in a school called Lees McRae, and it's about an hour and a half ish north of Asheville.
So you were in school there, and then your family was in Connecticut?
No, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. I'm sorry. Okay, I knew it was up there in New England state somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many states up there that it might as well all just be one state.
Right.
Sometimes.
I'm from Pennsylvania, so basically all I knew was New York and everything else. Yeah, like York, like the peppermint patty.
I had no idea. No.
Yeah. So that's where I learned how to mountain bike, was back in the East Coast, and I mean back then you could ride anywhere. There was no such thing as a center. It was just get on the dirt wherever you feel like it. And we had started out, the bikes were all fully rigid and shit like that back then. So when we were doing a lot of like rails and trails kind of videos, or not videos, rides. And so, that wasn't super exciting, but then when, we would get into this and that, but it's funny. I really wish I could go back to those trails that I rode back then, the ones that we thought were difficult, and stack them up to like what we're riding today. It's just freaking nuts, I remember this one hill that we used to call it Mount Flatliner, because it was just like so steep and so long or whatever. And it's like I stack that up against some of the shit that I've ridden out here in like Tahoe or something like that. I'm like, that was a freaking anthill, man. You know, it's crazy to see how much things have changed, and just, you know, it's on one hand, you feel like, man, the bike industry is like, it's like this marketing engine that's just trying to get you to buy new stuff. But on the other hand, it's like the advancements in the technology and what we're able to ride now compared to what we used to be able to ride. It's amazing. You know?
Yeah, like the technology aspect of mountain biking is interesting because again, I come from BMX, where it's like you have almost like the most simple kind of bike you can have. Like there's nothing special about a BMX bike.
Right. It's a
And
single speed.
yeah, and like you just do the best that you can with that very primitive object. And
yeah, I mean, when we rode BMX too, I mean, we didn't even have brakes. We took them off so our bikes would be lighter.
yeah,
We'd just be using the foot in the back tire, and that was that, you know.
I would take mine off because it would make me go bigger. Like I couldn't stop before a quarter pipe. I just would, if I'm coming into it really fast, I just have to go really high.
That's a good way to commit, right?
It's funny how much you can learn like through like scaring yourself and pushing that limit, and then you just get used to it.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm sorry, I kind of got us off track there. So nonetheless, so when you went back home after getting out of college, at that point where you're like, okay, well, I want to go get I need to get a job, like a regular job, or I'm just going to start, you know, hitting it on the YouTube, or.
So I had a really not difficult academically year. Like not like my academic year was easy, but I had a really tough year mentally. Back in, so my dad had passed away my junior year of college, and this was in November, December of that year. So that kind of threw me off. And then literally 1 year after that, my mom almost died from a tear in her ascending aorta.
You had a pretty rough go at it then.
I mean, with all things considered, like I've never really faced any kind of adversity in my life. So like it was starting to catch up. Like it was something that was bound to happen. So it was all of a sudden like these things would come up with like, you know, in the big picture, like of like what happens in other people's life. It's probably like I'm not that bad, but it just kind of happened at once.
That's too bad, man. I apologize, or I feel sad for you, or whatever it is that, you know, my condolences go out to you for the run that you had, though. I mean, because regardless, I mean, everybody always wants to stack up everybody else's problems to theirs and be like, oh, mine's not as bad, but it's still a rough go, dude, you know?
Delicious seltzer water.
Yeah.
The cheapest kind you can get at Hannaford's, which is our local grocery store. Anyway, so I was also having this weird conflict at school where I was one of the older kids on the team. So I was kind of expected to be more of a captain and in the captain's role. And I've never been a leader. I've like in group aspects, I just kind of hang out behind and, you know, I'll assist someone to make a decision, but I don't like to be the decision maker. But because I was older, there was a lot of pressure on me to be kind of captain. And there is this one, you know, like there's just like a bunch of situations where I just like I was much older than a lot of the kids at school, and so I had a hard time relating with them to a certain degree, especially my senior year. So I didn't really have any good. I didn't have any great friends my senior year of school. I'd say I had one or two, but you know it was
a shitload on the internet.
Well, I mean, like it's one thing to have like I value personal relationships a lot because you know it's people who I see day to day. Like I don't know, there's something different. But anyway, so this one incident which really kind of like I was already not having a great time. I was like kind of struggling to make videos for some reason. I think it was, you know, partially due to my mom passing, she didn't pass away, but my mom almost passing away at that point. Like that kind of like, it's like, oh, like, yeah, I took some time off from like making videos to try to figure out, and then like when I came back, I just like my energy wasn't there. And
somebody asked earlier too, like how do you keep from the burnout, and I think that's a good question to lay in there, is how did you overcome that? Because I know even in the time that I've been doing, I mean, just recently I had a little go of a month or so where I just I was like, man, I just don't have it. I don't want to pick up my camera. I don't want to edit. All I'm doing is walking around having anxiety about not editing. Like it's really taking the fun out of this.
yeah, you know what? It's an interesting thing. I like for me, if I'm not enjoying what I'm making, it's gonna show in the video.
Right.
So if I'm unhappy in my current situation, I just need to not make that video. Like sometimes it's good to push through that, like, in some situations, but like at some point, if it becomes a recurring trend, you just need to kind of step back and figure out the underlying problem. And then once you figure that out, you can move on again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I think for me, I just go through like ebb and flow with life, and for me, I have
mhm.
times where I'm like super motivated about shit. And then sometimes though, you just want to be like, fuck it. And you just want to be lazy and you just want to not do anything for a little while. And it's tough when you have, 5,000 to 220,000 freaking people waiting for you to do something,
Yeah.
it definitely makes you have this like little level of anxiety, where
Mhm.
you're like
Abs-
you're not being able to really relax. I think what I should have done, and this is what I would tell other people out there, is like, if you need to take a break, just tell everybody that you're going to take a break and then just take a break.
mhm.
Like instead of like, and I think you kind of did that when you did that with your Patreon. And I really respected that, where it's like, I'm just going to take some time off, man. And I think if I would have done that and just said to everybody, like, hey, I'm not going to do anything except for the biker bar for like 2 months. So
Mhm.
that's it. Then I wouldn't be stressing about it.
I also had a hard time with Patreon for me because I never like I kept trying to figure out how to use it best, and sometimes I'd do kind of the longer cut videos, and then sometimes I'd do like I'd post the videos on Vimeo without any ads, better quality, and it was hard for me to figure out how to like really deliver value through Patreon. And like like some people didn't mind, other people found that they weren't quite getting the value from Patreon. So I was like I just feel like it's better for me to step back from Patreon because I don't feel like I'm using it to its full potential. Like
Mhm.
I might go back and just do it in a like AMA format and just have that be the perk, but I haven't decided about that. I'd like to do a monthly like recurring AMA kind of thing, and I might even consider doing that outside of Patreon and just open it up to the public.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I struggle with Patreon, is like, what do you offer to people on YouTube and what do you offer on Patreon? But I think at the end of the day, your big fans are going to be on Patreon almost no matter what you do. They're there just to support you, and I think
Yeah.
that's and you. But so like on one hand, from like if you're looking at it from an outside view, you could say, you know, just provide them something because for the most part they just want to support you. But on the other hand, like I think as a moral person, you can't just accept money from people and not give them something that is valuable. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. It's I hate feel like getting handouts. Like I like to really work for the things I do, and um so like it's hard for me because I spend a lot of time on like my skills videos, um y- and like if someone wants to like chip in, like I'd be okay with that, but like I just don't it didn't feel right. So I don't know. I just had a really hard time with like figuring out how to like use Patreon because I couldn't give people it was hard for me to figure out how to like give people additional content with some of the skills videos.
Mm.
Because like, to me, like I spent a crap ton of time making sure like trying to make this video as perfect as possible. Like my brain was like fried. It's like I don't know how like what else I can add to this video that can provide value. So I think for me, like for the time being, I'm just gonna stay off of Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, you're not posting as regularly on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah, I'm like I've been kind of trying to do a video every 2 weeks, and I had to help my mom pack the house because she just moved.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of missed last week which was fine because all this week I've been like just testing out the new GoPro Hero 7. So I've been just trying to like test out in a bunch of different situations so I can make a pretty good video on the new GoPro Hero and like, talk about that in some depth. Because, that's a big part of the channel is like having equipment that's easy to use, but it's also like works well.
So at this point, is your job YouTube, or are you like what is it that
What is the income?
Yeah, what's your goal look like?
So
you're obviously a driven person by being a racer and going to school and doing the YouTube on top of it. So I mean, I find it hard to believe that you don't have a plan for where you're going.
I do have I'm not very like specific with my plans. I have like general kind of shotgun blast ideas.
That's good to have though. Shoot for the moon, man. You at least get up in the sky, right?
And like I have a few different things that like I want to have. But so yeah, I'll my goal is to be back on YouTube. And I've actually been working with Paul a little bit about like bringing on board sustainable sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
Because
when you say Paul, you're talking about Paul the punter?
Correct.
Okay.
And like I met him out at Crankworks last year, not this past year, but the year before. And he was a pretty straight shooter. He like had a lot of knowledge on the subject. And I was like, he kind of opened my eyes to things I had no idea about. So
for those of you guys that don't know who we're talking about, there's another YouTuber named, and his channel name is Paul the Punter. He's out of the British Columbia area, and he's
Squamish.
Yeah, okay, and he's a Brit as well. He used to work for Pink Bike.
Yep.
And I think he was head of, or I think part of their marketing team, something like that.
I believe he dealt with ads and like ad sales.
Right. So since then he's left Pink Bike and he's now kind of doing his own thing on that same level, but freelancing and then also doing his YouTube channel. Yeah,
which he's killing it.
Yeah, no, his channel's doing good. His live streams are he's got a new little twist to them that seems to be fun. So it's just a matter of getting people to dial into it.
I like it because it's for me, like anytime I did a live stream, I had to have something to do, and I think those little things I was doing to like do something is really good.
No, it definitely makes it fun.
Where were we? I felt like
it doesn't matter where we were. I think we were talking about you working. What the plan was.
So what the plan is?
Shotgun blast.
So the plan is to get back into more of like doing, because I felt like I kind of got off track with like some of the skill stuff, and I wasn't doing as many skill videos.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan is to come back and start doing more skills videos and do that in a more sustainable way where I can actually, make a sustainable living. Currently, I'm still able to make enough to pay bills with like the YouTube income that like I'm still like residuals. I can't say that word, but you get the point. From like my older videos that are still like making enough money. So I'm a pretty frugal person. And so I don't my biggest expenditures are usually bike related stuff.
You just had a little bit of a hard time saying that word there, and I remember you talking about you had a bit of a speech problem when you were younger. Or?
Yeah, so I grew up with a little bit of a speech impediment. It wasn't like this really bad one, but it was like I always talked funny, And then I also lived in France for 5 years. And when I was
So
in France,
that just made you talk even more funny then, right?
yeah, because I had to speak French at school. Like I at one point I was fluent in French. Now my French is kind of rusty, but I could pick it back up. When I moved back to the U.S., not only did I like talk funny because of my former speech impediment, but now I hadn't really spoken English very much in a while, and so uh, everything was just like you couldn't understand me. Like at sometimes, like I would slur my words together, and in my head, I could hear everything perfectly, but
Right.
to the outsider, I just talked really quickly and weird,
Right.
and people kind of like gave me a hard time about that, and so I went from being a kind of I was never extroverted, but a little bit more outgoing to a pretty quiet person. And in
Just
high
because of the
school,
speech stuff.
yeah, amongst others, like I was so like in high school, I just didn't really talk that much.
You think that played into you writing a bunch then? So you're just kind of like putting your energy into that?
I think that probably played some factor,
Yeah.
but I think because I moved around a bunch, like biking was like the only constant I had in my life. Like if that makes any sense, because like it's the
Oh, it
one
totally
thing
makes sense,
like
dude. I moved a shit ton in my life, man. I mean, I bet you I lived in over 30 houses before I graduated high school. So
I think by the time I graduated, I'd like changed schools like 12 times.
yeah. In high school, I went to 4 different high schools in 4 different states: Georgia,
Jeez,
Florida, Pennsylvania, and California.
high school was the only time I actually went to one school.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy, man. So, I mean, I think that's part though. I mean, think moving around is what helped me to be the communicator that I am, because I had to learn how to like, reestablish myself over and over and over again. And I think that that's what played into me being the way that I am. But I mean, everybody takes their situations a little differently. So somehow you go from having a speech impediment and talking funny and being the shy guy to having over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is kind of that's quite the story, right?
You know what? I think a lot of YouTubers are actually pretty shy. I think a lot of like I don't really like using the term extroverted or introverted. Like I don't think anyone's specifically one thing or the other, but I definitely think if you were to put me on that spectrum, I'm definitely more towards the introverted category.
Uh-huh.
Um, I I do like to like have fun and whatnot, but I'm usually pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And I observe a lot of things through like being on the internet quite a bit. I watch a lot of videos. In some ways I listen more than I talk.
Uh-huh.
And
I
I
wish
think
I
I
could
learned
do that. I bet you my lady wishes I could do that. Sometimes I just wish, shut the fuck up, Robert. So was your
but
mom French or something like that? Like, how did you end up moving to France? Was this your dad's job again?
yeah, they so Pratt and Whitney was a company and they were doing this joint venture, I think, with one of their competitors called Rolls-Royce, not the car company. They make jet plane engines as well.
Right.
And so we were stationed based out of Toulouse, which is one of the aerospace capitals of France.
So do you just end up getting thrown into some kind of like French immersion class or something like that? Or like how do you, because I would
I
make
was thrown. I was thrown in public school.
So you're basically like just sitting there not having a fucking clue what's going on, or they had some kind of program?
No, they had no program. I mean, I had like when I was in France, I like had a lot of trouble in school because I'd start flipping off the teacher and stuff. I had like kind of like I was acting out because like I couldn't understand what I was supposed to be doing, and like it was very frustrating. And I was trying to get attention in the only way I
Yeah.
could. And
Yeah, I
like
think
looking back, I hate what I did. Like, but like
right.
I don't know if that's a common theme about people who are thrown into a school where they can't speak the language. Like it was a very weird situation.
I think that's a common theme for kids that are just frustrated. I mean, I think it doesn't there's a I mean, I can say that I got in trouble in school a lot, and it was because I, generally speaking, like was catching what they were teaching way ahead of everybody else.
Mhm.
So then I was bored, And then the only way for me to like not be bored was to freaking fuck with people. And then then the teacher would like say something, and I'm like, I got some kind of authority complex, and next thing you know, I'm sitting in the principal's office, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned through school is I really don't like. I'm trying to think of the correct term, like authoritative figures who like tell you to do things without giving you a good reason. Like I'd be
Yeah.
terrible in the military.
Yeah, I was too. I
Like,
had a big joke when I went in, or actually not when I went in, when I got out. So like they always kind of give this little speech, like so and so was a great soldier, blah 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 blah. Like we're gonna miss him. See you later. And my squad leader gave this speech about me where he was like, when Schumacher showed up, I was like, this guy thinks he's a civilian. I'm gonna make a soldier out of this man. And he goes, today, Schumacher's leaving, and he's still a civilian. So, yeah, I definitely kind of did my own thing there. So that's interesting. So you were over there just freaking kind of like mustering your way through that, and then you come back to the States, get into. So who was it that handed you a mountain bike? How did that happen from the BMX to the mountain bike?
so what had happened? When I was at Woodward, I remember seeing Red Bull Rampage on the TV in the canteen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's the craziest stuff ever. I'll never do that. Like I'll never touch a mountain bike.
Right.
But it was like,
they're nuts.
I was like, man. But at the same time, I was like thinking, man, that was cool. And because I like never really got into the trick stuff, I was always looking. I had this urge to get back into racing, and I found out about downhill racing. I was like, huh. I wonder if I could translate some of my skills through BMX racing to mountain biking. I mean, it was more or less like less articulate than that. It was just like, I wonder if I could mountain bike well.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad had bought a mountain bike for himself at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like old 2001 like Specialized Enduro. Like to me, it looked like a cross country bike, but every once in a while, like I'd send it off the jumps in my yard. And I was like, this is kind of fun. It's kind of weird to jump on a mountain bike, but like, it's different. And so I think they saw that I was starting to get interested in mountain biking. I kind of expressed interest. I wanted to try to do a race, and I wanted to get into mountain biking. So we did a little bit of homework, and I found out that there are some trails nearby. So we went out to the local trails. My dad let me borrow his bike, and we timed it just so that we ran into some other guys on downhill bikes riding these trails who were locals, and they let me follow them on my like dad's what I would consider a cross country bike.
Right.
And I like held on to them, and they're like, cool. You should think about racing. I'm like, okay. Where do you do that?
Yeah, that's kind of funny. When I first started riding, I was riding, BMX all the time with my buddies. We'd just be going around town and, ride over to here and you can jump over this alleyway and ride over here and jump down these set of stairs, and then garbage day, do kickouts on everybody's recycling bin, and just, just be shitheads all the time. And then, then my mom's boyfriend got me into mountain biking. It was the same kind of thing where it was like that, those skills though, that kind of like,
it's hard to replace what you learn on BMX bike.
Yeah. And I think that those skills, when I started riding, a lot of those guys that they were all like, mid 30s, maybe 40 years old. And here's this little kid that's just like, A, got no fucking fear. And B, I think is just like, it was similar to what we were doing already. And except for now I had gears and probably better brakes, Yeah,
the front brake was something that took me a while to use. I was like, oh, really? You're not supposed to just use your back brake? The front brake is important?
So what was your first what was your BMX bike of choice back in the day?
I mean I went through so many. Like I had a PK Ripper.
What was the first one that you were just like amped off of having?
I think the PK Ripper, which was this is before they went out of business they went bankrupt, and then they're bought by Fuji's parent company, which is who they're with now, I believe.
How old are you?
That's a hard question these days. I'm 28. It's funny, as you get older, it's harder and harder to like answer that question quickly.
Oh, believe me, dude. I have to freaking, dude. I was like writing down the wrong age for like 6 or 7 months, and the person that does HR at the company I work at, she's like, dude, you're lying about your age. And then I like looked at it and figured it out. I was like putting down that I was older than I actually am. I'm like, dude, I'm not 21 trying to pretend that I'm older. I'm like, I'm just an idiot.
But yeah, I like PK Ripper because it had the same initials as me. Like, I thought it was a real weird, funky looking bike. And yeah, so this is probably one of my favorites, but like I never really got that attached to one particular bike.
Speaking of funky bikes, you got that little tiny thing that you roll around on your videos. How much fun is that thing?
You know what? I don't have it up here with me, but that thing is a surprising amount of fun. Like, it's one of those things where you kind of set it. It's like, you know how like you have those things that you put on your like coffee table that are a good conversation piece kind of thing. Yeah, that's the same thing, but for people who ride bikes. You put that in your garage, and that's bound to get somebody to try to do something.
Oh yeah, I can attest that I'm 150% sure that if I had one of those, me or all of my friends would at one time or another break a bone because we're drunk coming up with stupid ideas to do with that thing.
Those things are very like they're so easy to like flip out on, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think there's some simplicity to it. The best thing, like, and I haven't ridden one, but just looking at it, it just reminds me of like when like scooters came out. Remember this? I don't know if maybe you were a little too young. The scooters that had like the like 8-inch wheels, like rubber, like pneumatic wheels, like you pump them up. And
I know which scooters you're talking about.
Okay. So like when those came out,
that like phase.
So when those came out, it was so simple just to get on that thing, and you could do like do a bunny hop on it, and you could try to like, do a 360 on it, or you could do a 180 on it, like super simple, because just like the body mechanics of moving yourself around are just like simple because you're just standing on this thing, right? So I think that's kind of the way I look at that thing. Like, it's like, you kind of have the gist of it, and it's just tiny, and it just has to be fun. I'm sure it's only a matter of time till like your elbow is shattered or your wrist is fucking done. But
you know what? Those things are just fun to rip around on, like whether you're jumping or not, just like riding down to like, not like if you're coasting, that's fun. If you're trying to pedal, it's miserable.
Yeah, I can imagine the pedaling platform's not that good, right?
No, it's terrible.
Santa Cruz. That's hilarious. So at this point you're in New Hampshire.
I'm in Vermont. I was in New Hampshire. Yeah, like it's hard for like
it's hard for you to stay still, huh?
Yeah. Well, so this kind of boils into like why I kind of stopped making videos for a little bit.
All right.
Because like there's some factors before I was done with school that like really kind of got me down. And like when I was done with school, I was just like, I'm ready to be out of here. Like I'm like, I'm not gonna miss this place.
Right.
And so
you're cool. Fuck you. I'm out.
Which is unfortunate because like when I have a lot of good memories associated with that school. That's where I met Haley. Yeah, so when I was done with school, I was kind of in this like lull, and I didn't know what to do. If I wanted to like I wanted to go forward with like YouTube. So like I made like 2 videos, and I was like really eager to make videos, and then like I just felt I was having a hard time like feeling happy about my situation. And like I wasn't like necessarily unhappy, but I just like something about it's like, do I want to go forward with this YouTube thing, or do I want to like more or less go get a real job and still ride bikes? So it's one of those things where I was having this like mental dilemma, and I also didn't know where my home base was, because I was living with my mom, and like this like there's a lot of different pieces that go into this story. But when my mom had a pretty good savings, she was pretty smart with money. And then after my dad passed away, she obviously his savings and whatnot. So I knew she was planning on moving to the West Coast, to Washington, and that was her big plan because her and my dad wanted to do that eventually. They had spent some time in Washington before I was born, so that's one of the reasons. And so I didn't know if I was gonna base myself out of the house and kind of turn that into kind of my facility where I make all videos and my shop. So I started doing the legwork to make that into my shop, which is where you saw the video.
Mm-hmm.
And then she ended up closing on a house way sooner than I ever expected her to close to move. So
that's where you were doing the videos in kind of a basement kind of spot.
Exactly. But
Okay,
the thing is we didn't need to sell she didn't need to sell that house to purchase the one in Seattle. So we still technically have that house and we're going to be probably putting it on the market sometime. We're still unsure what the situation with that house is because it's old and it's a lot of work needs to be done to it.
Yeah. So at this point you're telling me you're moving to Seattle? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, but I will be in Seattle a lot more. But no.
So you mentioned. Go ahead.
Haley lives in Vermont, and she lives in an apartment, which is where I am now. And so it was always hard to get stuff done there because it's a small apartment, can't really fit bikes in, and so eventually I just I was also having this dilemma. It's I'm 28 years old. I don't want to be living in my house, but I kind of feel like I'm kind of a caretaker of my mom at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because my sister's overseas. I'm the only one. My dad's dead. I need to kind of help my mom out, but I also want to spread my wings and go do my my thing.
Right.
And
right.
so
I would scratch your balls at the refrigerator at 3 a.m. with your underwear on and not have your mom looking at you, right?
Yeah, I mean, my mom supported the YouTube thing too. She loves it, but it was just one of these things where I was just just very frustrated with my situation. It's I didn't know how to tell her hey, I need to just go live with Haley because
that's a tough thing to do, man. You feel like you're letting her down, and I think with your dad passing away, I'm sure you're carrying some weight where you really need to take care of her. You said your sister's overseas, so I can understand what you're saying, man. You're having a little battle there, man.
And so that just really brought me down amongst other things, and I just at that point I was I'm not in the mindset to make videos. I just want to go explore Vermont and New Hampshire with Haley and just go ride. And
so let's talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
So let's talk about Haley. How did you come up with this mountain biker?
Yeah, so lucky for me, when probably though if I were saying
I met her at Woodward.
No, so I met her at school because we had a collegiate cycling team. I met her there, and she had a broken a shattered ankle at the time because she broke it doing a drop downhill. And I was like, wait, you're a girl who rides downhill from New Hampshire, and I've never met you before.
And your ankle's broken, so you can't run away from me.
And it was just one of those things where she wait for you to come back.
I'm here.
It was just weird talking to a blank screen.
Hey, man, we were sitting here not drinking a beer, so I didn't think that out when I put these headphones on. So sorry about that. I'm gonna have to work on my drinking studio next week. So go ahead.
So anyway, she was this. I think the time that she so again, she was from New Hampshire. She rode downhill. And I was like, how have I never met her? Because the downhill scene on the East Coast is really small. So almost everybody. And especially you kind of know everybody in your state.
Right.
And so it was kind of oh, this is cool. But at the time when I first started, like I had a girlfriend, and it was kind of a long distance relationship with a really awesome girl. But just through the situation, we it just wasn't working out, and so we broke it off. And I wasn't looking for a girlfriend. I was just kind of, going to take some time to figure myself out. And I was missing a cleat bolt for my Shimano shoes, and she helped me out. And then I started to end up spending more and more time with her. I'm like, wow, this girl is pretty cool, and like she's not playing any kind of games. She's not trying to do any weird things that typical girl things.
Yeah, you know why she wasn't doing anything weird? Because she's a fucking mountain biker. That's why, dude. If she was a road biker, you'd be like, I don't know, man. But
well, the thing is, she also raced road.
That's okay. They can ride road sometimes, but if they're a mountain biker, then you at least know where their roots are, right?
She's raced almost every biking discipline except for maybe track.
I haven't looked at her. I know she had a channel for a while. I don't know if she does still. I remember watching a few of her videos back in the day, though.
I put the bug in her ear at one point. I was like, listen, there's a spot on YouTube for a female, a strong female advocate for the sport. And I think you have all the qualities to make that happen. If you want to, I will help facilitate to make that happen. But I think the editing side, editing videos side of things, she just hates.
Yeah, I know it's tough. That's the hardest part of it. That is the part that most people underestimate.
So I think she that's something she really likes science. She was a biology major. She's a lab tech and she loves her job. So I want her to do whatever she's passionate about.
Yeah.
And so she'll be in my videos in and out. She's a big she's holding the camera quite a bit. She's always a huge support. She's the first one to watch my videos and tell me if they suck or if they're if I'm on a track or if I need to re-explain something.
My lady doesn't watch my videos. She just hears about them from my friends, and she's like, "Really? You were singing in the bathroom taking a shit in Reno? That's really what you fucking put on the internet, Rob?" Yes, I did. It was hilarious. She does not watch my channel at all, but I have talked to her about YouTube too, and I think it's one of those things where when you find something like this where you can just be yourself and you see somebody else has some qualities, you really want you want to share that with them. And the hard part is sometimes that they just don't care about it the same way that you do, or they don't want to do that in that manner,
Yeah, I definitely had relationships like that.
Yeah.
And so when Haley and I started dating, our first test of our relationship was it was spring break. We went on a road trip to go mountain bike. We drove to Florida. We didn't really have any plans. We're just we're gonna go to Florida and then come up back through Alabama, or ride some of these places and figure it out. And so when we were unshowered after 4 days of riding, she was forcing rotisserie chicken as we're driving into my face as I'm driving through Alabama. I'm wow, she's okay with this,
right?
That was the point where I was I think I found a girl.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. Earlier you said you weren't really looking for a girlfriend, and it's so cliche, but it's 9 out of 10 times true is that's when you find the person that you're with. It's just you're always least when you're just not looking anymore, otherwise for whatever reason, the world is oh, you want that really bad? No. Oh, you don't want that? Here you go.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out.
Yeah, definitely. So I met you in Sedona last year.
Yep.
And one of the things, this year actually, it seems so long ago.
It does, doesn't it?
It seems like a lifetime ago. But I mean, so nonetheless, I met you this spring in Sedona, and you were at the TASCO tent, and I was talking to TASCO just a couple of weeks ago on the biker bar here. And while I was talking to them, I was saying, when I met you, two things were really stood out to me. A, you were like way smaller than I thought you were. Like, I don't know why. I just like
that's the first time I've gotten that.
Yeah, like I was like, man, I thought I don't know why. Like you were just like I didn't like, not that I thought you were going to be a huge guy, but for some reason, like I was like, I don't know. I just like you were a smaller guy than I thought, right? So maybe it's because I was like cracking on myself about weight. I'm like, oh wow, look how much you're bigger than you are than him. But and then aside from that, though, the thing that I really took it away from it, aside from me trying to make a joke that just failed, is like I really thought you were a super, super genuine guy. And I think that on your videos, you know, you're always kind of your videos are very to the point of you're teaching somebody something, you're showing somebody something, and like who you are doesn't necessarily like who Phil Kmetz at the end of the day doesn't necessarily come out other than like kind of like through the fringe. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and well, first of all, I don't know if did I say thanks for like it's always I
So that was one of the reasons that when I was talking to TASCO, that I was like, you know, I need to reach out to Phil because I really want people to see who he is, because that was the thing that like I was like, man, this guy is like so genuine, man. Like I really, and I think it's because, you know, through watching your videos, I just didn't really know much about you. I think it's kind of like watching Seth, you know, like he's another person that doesn't like put a lot of necessarily like him out there. Like I would imagine you guys are both on the introvert side, you know what I mean? Where it's like somebody like Brian or like Alex or me, like we're always talking about who we are and like our feelings about things and stuff like that, where your content's more like, I'm teaching you this thing and you're going to get to know me sorta, but not like the more personal side of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And one thing, like, so let's talk about a skills video, for example. I find that with a skills video, I'm always like, I want to be very careful with my word choice to try to, like, I don't use any random words for the most part to try to explain how to do something, because I want to, like, you know, when you're jumping, it's like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you're driving your legs into the ground. Well, to me, like that is explaining the wrong thing, because like, you're not driving your legs into your ground. You're trying to push your body up off the ground, and like, you know, it's kind of the same thing, but like depending on how you explain it, people envision it completely different.
Yeah, totally.
And so I like when I make a skills video, I'm very particular about what words I say. And then the other thing is I have a hard time saying some words, so I like just actively try to avoid saying them. Like
you have a like big list on the wall, like words that I can't say. Nope.
No, but I definitely should, because I get like I catch myself going through like the script sometimes and be like,
you're all, I can write that one down on paper, no problem, but I sure as fuck can't say it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
like,
hilarious.
There's a lot of words like that, and sometimes like even the words that I can say when I'm trying to do the voiceover, I just can't. So I just have to come up with a different way of saying something.
Yeah. So when you're making your videos, do you like kind of like cut out all the like put the video down and then write the script, or you write the script and then put the video down? Or
it's kind of I'm trying to figure out an equivalent analogy to this. Like it's kind of like a rough draft like process, where you come up with a rough draft of things I kind of want to talk about, go out and film what I think will work for it. I'm unhappy with both of those. I go back out, revise a script or like some like details I want to try to explain, go film some things, come back. And like, so it's like, it's different layers of like writing, filming. So like one of my videos takes forever to make. It's like the least efficient way you can make a video.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have absolutely no idea what my video is about when I start.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing, is like some of my videos will actually change. Like, you know, let's say it's about this one thing, and then like while I'm trying to explain something, like, wait, it might be better if I try to explain it this other way and explain it just from a totally different like standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I hear you there. So one thing I learned about myself, this would be my YouTube question for every YouTuber that I ask. One thing that I learned about myself when I started editing was certain words that I say all the fucking time.
Yep.
What's the one that you're always trying to cut out?
Like so. Or
Yeah.
like there's things I say and I always begin my sentences with so.
Yeah. I start a lot of my sentences on the channel with "all right."
that actually, that's probably all right. So that's it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because like when you're trying to do the voiceover, it's hard to have that right energy because no one wants to listen to like, all right, and now you lift your front wheel. Like, but at the same time, like if I try to talk normally, I tend to slur my words together. So
Yeah.
I have to find that right balance of like enunciating and natural. And I think I'm erring a little bit more on the robotic side of things right now. But
Dude, you would be good with a beer channel, man. If you had a beer channel, nobody would fucking question you.
I'll keep that in mind for my non-PG-13 related.
Even if you're not drinking, just put beer on there all the time, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, okay, I get it." You get a sponsorship with Dale's or something like that.
But yeah, so that's another one. Yeah, so I feel like a good way to start my thought for me is always saying yeah, so, or all right, so.
Right.
And those are always the words I'm trying to cut out.
Yeah, I cut out a lot of those and a lot of stupid shit that I say too.
It's probably good that like we to cut down on like some of the things we say because like a lot of times like I'll like literally just cut out full sentences where I'm just like just saying very little in a lot of words.
It's interesting too, and this is kind of off topic, I guess, as well. I mean, it's yeah, it has something to do with it. Like sometimes you find out how many times that you actually repeat your sentences or the beginning of thing, like you stutter things and you don't ever realize that you stuttered them. And like when you're listening to the edit, you're like, I said, do you guys want to do this? Like, you're like, I didn't even know that I said that when I thought I just, like it came right out. But it's like when you're listening to yourself recorded over and over again, it's funny how many things that you just kind of run into and you're like, what the hell?
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, definitely lowered my freaking my perception of myself. So
it's funny. I definitely have learned a lot through recording myself on video because I feel like in my head I'm very articulate, and then when I started making videos, I realized how I wasn't I wasn't nearly as articulate as I thought I was. So making videos has really helped me kind of pay attention to my speech, and how I say words, and just like a lot of things comes back to my speech, but just like I've learned a lot about myself through making videos, and because it's like having a camera on yourself, like you can see all like the nitpicky things you can just point at.
It's funny. I've learned a few things about myself because of people imitating me. And then I'm like, oh, I do that. That's so funny. Oh my God. Like Alex, I think on one of his videos did something about like the way that I shake my head whenever I'm like, what's up, YouTube? And I didn't think anything of it at the time. And then somebody else had done it on another video. And I was like, started watching it like, cause now, I always say that on my intros. And I'm like, I do kind of bobble my head a little bit. I never even noticed that.
You know what? I do something weird on, I think when I do Instagram stories, I always like do something weird with my eye. I can't remember what it is, but I remember watching a bunch of consecutive Instagram stories I posted, and I was doing something funny with like I was squinting. I'm like,
you're a pirate all of a sudden.
And I never realized I did it until then. I was like, okay, I need to try to pay attention to that. And it's hard because like then you don't like do like you don't talk naturally.
Right. Yeah. You just have to let it go. So the other thing was, whenever I met you in Sedona, I was when I was leaving Sedona, for whatever reason, I got like food poisoning, something fierce, like the worst I've ever had in my entire life the night before we left. So I pretty much spent like all night long, like just trying to make sure that I didn't shit the bed. So like I was not sleeping. It was like the worst night of my life, right? And it was supposed to be like a really fun night because like, you know, we had this really nice little like condo that me and the lady got, and I was like, we're gonna go back and like sit out in the jacuzzi and watch the fucking sunset. I'm gonna drink some champagne, pretend I'm fucking sophisticated, and next thing you know, I'm like running for the bathroom. So with that in mind, the next day I'm just like feeling like dog shit, and I'm riding out of town, and I actually see you coming out of the hotel that you were in, like bringing your bike down the stairs because it's kind of like a
you saw me doing that.
Yeah, and it was funny. So I was like, oh, there's Phil. That's kind of crazy. Kind of like made me feel good for a second as I was leaving town, right? And then I ended up seeing your video, and like that clip like was in your video too, and I was like, dude, I seen him do that. And you were on the way to go to the fucking White Line. And that is what I really need to talk to you about, because I have like a big fear of heights. If you watched my Sedona video, that would be great. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And I was on a like a cliff that was like 10 feet away from me. That was like, I honestly contemplated crawling because I'm like so afraid of heights. When I watched your White Line video, like it was like, it was painful for me to watch, but I couldn't stop watching it. Right. And it's like, I know he didn't die. He posted on Instagram yesterday, you know, like how the fuck did you bring yourself to even walk up there, dude?
So, okay. I'd be lying if like it wasn't slightly kind of ego driven. That'd be like, it's just like one of those things where you see a lot of people do it. And it's like, I got to do this. So
you're like, oh yeah, but it's raining. Why not? But let's make it more different. Why didn't you just put a fucking blindfold on while you're at it?
Yeah, exactly. Why? But it was also one of those things where, you know, it's not a super technical move. It's something that you can do all day, and you've done it before. It's just in like the context of the situation, is like, you know, if you mess up, it's not going to be a good time. And I think there's still a little bit of margin of error, but there's not much. And it's hard to say how big that margin of error is, because like it kind of rolls out. And I think you like, if you were to crash, I think you could still save it. But it's one of those things where it's like you could or you could not. So
yeah, it's like the only way to find out if you could save it is not a good way of going about finding out if you could save it.
Exactly.
Like that's a bad test.
So I was with both Simon, Bosman, absolutely nutty rider, 50-year-old guy who just like I have tremendous amount of respect for his riding style. And then I was with Eric Porter. And Eric Porter is like, he is one of the coolest people I've ever met. Like he does a lot of backcountry skiing, and he's done a lot of like avalanche and risk management, and he's like a very easy person to talk to, and he can make you feel at ease. And he was like, you know, we had a big long conversation about, you know, the line, about how to do it, and then we also talked about, you know, the conditions maybe we shouldn't do it. So there's a lot of the like video I actually cut out, because like we talked quite a bit about whether we should do this or not. And so I knew I could do that feature. It's just like in the context of things, like didn't want to mess up. But I think having two other people who had done it before, you know, it's one of those things where it's like a pack mentality. You felt like
you're getting towed in.
Yeah,
you know, like between your ego and then the other people, and just I can tell you, like for me, my fear of heights is just, it's debilitating. So like I felt like weak just watching you. Like it was like I'm not fucking kidding when I said it was painful for me to watch. You know, it was just like I got that feeling like I was standing on the side of the cliff by myself, man. And like the GoPro, because I've used the GoPro a lot, I know how how much it lies to you and making things look like tamer than they are. And that shit looked fucked up. So I was just like, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and like it was just one of those things where it's like once I was there, I just needed to check it off the box. Like, there's no good reason for why like you do that line. It's like it's not that impressive. It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know, a stupid test of like yourself.
How big your balls are. Yeah.
Yeah, and like which doesn't make any sense, but like at the same time, like why do people climb to the top of Mount Everest? I guess that's a little bit more. That's way more interesting.
Yeah.
That's like
I think the answer to all of those questions is because you can. You know what I mean? That's really what it comes down to. Why did you do that? Because I could. You know.
But yeah, so I'm like, in retrospect, I'm glad that I did it. I don't know if I'm gonna do it again, ever. I'm like, once, pretty cool. Yeah.
Was that the scariest thing you ever did on a bike?
Definitely in that kind of situation, yes. I've probably done other things more scarier. But at the moment, I can't think of any.
I watched you on one of your videos, and I don't know if this was like pre-skills with Phil or not, or there's a video of you doing like an urban race, like South America
that was scary. That was scary.
Dude, was that like what is that like? Just, do you like walk through that course and kind of like run through everything like slow speed first? Because I mean, there's some like big hits, like big drops, like huge jumps that you were doing in that.
So
if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, so we did a course walk, which is like walking down everything. And we did it the day before. And so the first thing of that course is a set of stairs, and it's hard for me to remember, but like there's like a bunch of different sets of stairs, and they're like, I don't think there's any more than like 10 stairs in one set, but like sometimes there's like 8 stairs flat, 6 stairs flat, 7 stairs flat, 8 stairs. So it's like it doesn't
like not right. So where you can just like send it like
exactly.
Like the landings are too small, so you have to kind of roll them.
And it's also really, really steep. Like, it's way steeper than you think. Because I'd seen videos of it. I'm like, okay, I can gap stairs. But then it's like, in context, it's really steep. And
I'll tell you what, running a set of stairs that's super steep is one of the scarier things that I've done. Like, even compared to like some of the technical like rock rolls and stuff like that I've done. I've definitely I've gone down a set of stairs not realizing how steep it was until I was on it. And it's just like your suspension is just like going nuts on you, and you're just like, holy shit, man.
And it's hard to brake because it like that kind of terrain like is really like not good braking surface, especially with like your like suspension just bobbing up and down. So like after I did the course walk, I the stairs up, and I was like, all right, I can gap this set of stairs. So by gapping, I mean you'd gap over the 8 set of stairs to the next landing or so.
Right.
And
the
so
next platform.
Yeah. And so there's 2 situations where like, all right, so you'd gap this one, and then you would jump out, and you'd still gap from the last landing to flat. So you'd essentially be gapping over 3 sets of stairs.
Right.
And like that was the way that just made the most sense, because I'm a racer. I'm trying to go for it. I'm trying to find the fastest way down the mountain, if you will. And my first practice run, literally 9 seconds into it, I'm on the ground because like I gapped, and then I'm about to gap the last set of stairs, and my suspension just throws me over the bars.
Oh no!
Onto like hard asphalt. That's where I have like this scar from, if you can see
ouch.
it. And my arm like swelled up to double the size. Like I couldn't tell if I'd broken anything. But like it was swollen, like it was insane. I couldn't like literally press into my skin and make like a full-on pump track.
So you don't wear like elbow and knee pads, or like that was before you decided to wear pads?
I actually throughout my career I started wearing less and less pads. So I was not wearing any elbow pads. So it's like my like if you watch back on the video, because I had 2 GoPros on, I used my arms, and then you fall onto your elbows, and then like roll over his shoulder. So because you're
Oh
trying
yeah, that is the video I saw. I remember that now
you're,
that you
you're
said
trying
that.
to disperse the energy. You're trying to continue continue rolling.
So what was the reason that you started using less pads?
So one of the reasons honestly is just like I'm a stinky guy. And like it's just like it's really gross to like do a bunch of practice runs and then put on full body armor again. And it
Hmm.
just like reeks and like it so honestly one of the reasons like I just couldn't deal with the smell.
Yeah. You
And
couldn't stand yourself. You're like, I
but
fucking hate me.
it was just really gross. And then the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
reason is like once you start to like get good, like you start to be a little bit more confident in your abilities. And so I found when I stopped wearing pads, I started to be a little bit more cautious about some of the lines I was taking. I had to be a little bit more certain that I could make something.
Hmm.
And so it kind of changed my like frame of thought because like now without pads, crashing really sucks.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Just
crashing
wait till
without
you
pads.
fucking get to like your mid 30s or 40, dude. You'll really know it then.
And so it's one of those things where like, I'd obviously helmet is no question. Knee pads like no brainer, but like elbow pads were always kind of annoying. And like so it's just like, I just ditched them. If I started racing again, I'd probably get like a some form of back like chest and back protector, shoulder pads, but like I wouldn't go back to elbow pads. No, that's one thing that always bothered me.
What would be the reason with the chest and the back? Just because like whenever you go down, like if you're OTB, like just to really keep that like
Yeah,
breastplate
because
from.
just like so you can kind of roll and like if
Uh-huh.
you like tuck and roll over rocks, like it's not
Mhm.
going into your spine and like it's a little bit more cushiony.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I
Uh,
would imagine too, like you're talking about more downhill stuff anyway, right? So you're in some like chunky ass sections, like your back being a problem would definitely. I can see where you're coming from.
but like for me, like I don't mind scrapes and stuff. Like that just comes with the territory. Like,
Yeah, no, I kind of accepted that when I was young and a BMXer, but I think that somebody said this to me the other day. You usually pay for it in blood until you make the decision to start wearing pads, and that's what it was for me. And for a long time, I never wore pads because I was like, dude, I've been riding bikes for like 20 years, man, or longer, like mountain bikes for like at least that. And it's like, I don't need fucking pads. I never had them until now, or never had them before. And then, I took this like big digger and just my knee was all screwed up. And actually, like that night, I went to bed with like bandages on both my elbows, both my knees. Like, I'm like, that was just stupid. Like, all it is a matter of me putting on some pads. And now they're actually like, really comfortable. Like I have some Cali strike pads.
mhm.
They're just like super comfortable. I would imagine I've seen some. I've tried on like the G Form and the other brands that are similar to them as well. Like for as comfortable as they are, it's like why not?
Absolutely. I definitely like knee pads are something that like for any time I'm in a bike park, I'm like wearing knee pads. They're super those don't bother me at all. So like I still think companies have a long way to go with designing body armor that's not as restrictive and like comfortable to wear, and at the same time that like just you know one of the things I found is like it just doesn't dry out quickly, and like you're just like containing all this sweat, and it's just super gross.
Yeah. I know when I rode street bikes, Dionisi had some stuff that was like a mesh almost, and then it had pads built into it.
Mhm.
I would imagine they have something like that for mountain biking as well.
Yeah, I do believe they make a bunch of stuff. I've never particularly tried any of their equipment.
Yeah, yeah. And their motorcycle stuff was always dialed. So I know that I had talked to MTB Savant. I think he has those Dionisi like knee pads, and they're very similar to the strikes that I have from Cali. I think they're made by the same like parent company, whoever the manufacturer is.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, it's definitely. I think at this point, for as comfortable as pads are, it's like, well, why not? You know what I mean? Like, especially for the average Joe that's got to go to work on Monday, and like your opportunity cost of like screwing your elbow or like shattering a kneecap or an elbow over looking cool or not being as hot. Like, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think it really depends where you're coming from. Like I will never tell people not to wear pads if like, you know, it's just a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, you know, where do you stand on it? What's the risk versus reward?
Yeah.
And you know, like, you know, you're everyone's a grown up. Make your own decision. If like you think, you know, getting injured is an acceptable risk, which,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not saying it's a smart thing, but you can make your own decision.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you there. I mean, I have the same problem with like, I mean, do you wear a full face very often?
Yeah, when I ride a bike park, except when I went to Whistler, I always wear a full face. I didn't bring my full face with me for whatever reason. I like it was a dumb like I look back at that video.
Oh, I think we lost him. Just like that. He gone. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to ad lib for a minute, and we'll see if he comes back. So for me, with the full face, I once again, it's one of those things where like I guess you have to pay for it in blood. And for me, it was like I was out there riding bikes for freaking 20 some years, and I've never smashed all my teeth out. So why the fuck do I need one? But I'm just watching these guys, like more and more of these guys like wearing these full face helmets, and I'm like thinking about some of the speeds that I run at, and you know, for an average Joe, they're fast for me, and it's like, well, I don't know how much sense that makes if I'm just gonna go barreling down the hill. I mean, I'm wearing a helmet skiing, I'm wearing a helmet mountain biking, but I definitely should take care of the grill on the high speed stuff. So with all that being said, how about you guys out there? How many of you guys wear a full face helmet on a regular basis?
Am I back?
You are back. So I just got done telling a story about how much I hated your channel and nobody should go there.
Perfect.
No. I just wrapped it up with the full face thing. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of your favorite I don't know how to say, like, parts on a bike? Like are you like
Things I'm particular about?
yeah, like brakes, or like for me it's brakes. I have a big fucking deal about brakes, but
So, all right, that's a good question. I can get used to any part on a bike if you give me enough time. I really hate working on my bike. I like spending a lot more time riding my bike than I am like tinkering with it. So once I find a setup, I don't like changing it. So I used to be not particular about anything, and now I'm kind of particular about things, but I'm still like there are people who are way more particular and sensitive to certain things than I am.
yeah.
So one thing that makes to me is a big deal is like brake lever setup. Like when I jump on any bike, that's like the first thing I touch. Like
Do you grab the brake? What fingers do you use to grab the brakes?
index finger.
Index. I always, for the longest time, use my middle finger with certain brakes, and I think my Saints right now, I can't really grab with my middle finger, so I switched to index, and it took me so long to get used to that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like that's not the I've met quite a few people who do that.
Yeah.
I try to, explain why they might want to be using their index, but at the end of the day, if you can use your middle finger to brake and that works for you,
whatever you're good with. So what's the thing about that you're particular about with the brake setup?
just not necessarily the angle, it's how it feels on bars. Like, that's where your hand's gonna like is going to be set up. So as long as it like has a good, the pitch of the lever is good, and then where, like I run my brake levers pretty far in. Like I don't want it to be like I want to be able to death grip if I have to, but like I still want to be able to grab my brake lever really easily. So just like the general position is somewhat important to me. Like because
yeah, I don't like the levers to be out very far. but I want that point of engagement to be really quick from when I pull them. Some people like them to come all the way to the bars. Like
I can't do that.
I hate that.
Yeah, I like mine to engage like probably like start engaging like an inch and a half from the bars, and like I want them to be like fully engaged like an inch away from the bars or so. I've never measured, but in my mind that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Yeah, I want them to start engaging as soon as possible. Like to me, like I just like I can learn that point of engagement of where full and like where off and on is, you know what I mean? I don't want to have to pull that and have some kind of like lead area until they start engaging. It's kind of like hubs, you know what I mean? Like you want to pedal, when you pedal, you want the wheel to fucking roll. Like when I pull the brake, I want the wheel to stop rolling.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what other thing. I guess like there's a lot of little things that I can be somewhat particular about.
I'll give you another one of mine. I don't like skinny grips. Like I like the Owries because they're really big. And I just like that. Like anytime I get on a bike that has skinny grips, like instantly, like it's just annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah, I'm not super particular about grips. Like there are some grips I really like. I'm like, without trying to like plug one of my sponsors, I'm pretty impressed with those I think they call them knuckle dusters. Like I've been really happy with them because they don't have, like they're lock on grips, but they don't have the outer lock. So like the end of it is just
a single lock system.
Yeah, and I never realized how much I hated the outer lock until I had these where I can put my hand on the full end of the bar. And so that like, not a big thing, but I really like those bars or those grips. And now like anytime I get grips, I'm going to make sure I get one that does not have a lock on the outside.
That's interesting.
What are
like they spin it all then?
I mean, I have an issue. Like, I mean, if I really try hard, I can spin them a little bit, but it's not like I'm like just like twisting them. Like,
yeah. I'm just talking about like in riding. You don't feel like they have any give at all.
Nah.
Have you ever tried those new grips that have like the little suspension built into them?
I hated them.
I haven't tried them yet.
I like so. It's hard to, so they reached out, they sent me a few sets to try, and I tried a few, and I was straight up with them. I'm like, listen, I can't guarantee they will ever make it in a video, but if like I do end up liking them, I might plug them in a video because I think like kind of like a review of different features, like different like nifty things you can find for different kind of bikes. But I really didn't like them. I found they didn't work that well, and like the like twistiness was like just really odd.
Kind of distracting, maybe.
Yeah, and I didn't find that the vibration damping was really doing anything. Like I just felt like a fat grip could do the same thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that like really bothered me was how much wasted space on the bars there were. Because like the actual locking mechanism was much wider than any other locking mechanism I've used. So I had to run my brake levers further inside. So now my handlebars are essentially like smaller. I'm like it's an interesting idea, and I think some people actually like it. I just found that I didn't like them.
Yeah, it's funny with it's funny that way with products. Like sometimes what's good for you isn't good for other people. I just had a whole conversation yesterday at the bike shop about when people ask you, what bike should I get? And I always like the first thing that comes to my mind is like, don't listen to anybody. Like it's completely almost in my mind pointless to listen to somebody about what bike that you should get, because the bike that I think is the best thing since sliced bread, you could get on and you're just like, I don't like the way this makes me feel at all. So like maybe you could look at some components of like, oh, this bike is really poppy and fun, and you can kind of like steer somebody that way, or this one is a really good climber. But as far as just like really like just giving like, hey, this is my advice for you. My advice for you is go out and sit on the fucking thing, dude. Because that's the only way you're gonna know.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of took a gamble with my calling. I never test rode it. But I had ridden an Evil before. I knew I liked them, and I knew I wanted like a short travel bike that was just kind of built to just like take punishment, and it's pretty much exactly everything I asked for.
I've had a few bikes that I really read a lot about online, and whenever I got on them, was not impressed. And I've had some bikes, like I'll tell you, and I do not get tired of fucking talking about this bike. I rented a giant Trance earlier this year because my bike was in the shop. I was like, oh, I'll do a demo video. There was like, I wanted to get this Yeti from this other shop. They were already like rented that day. So I called around. There was this one shop that had like the cheapest rental bike in town. I was like, fuck it, I'll go get that. I'm just gonna go do this video. Like, review videos are good. Usually they get a lot of views, and I'm like, so I'll just go ride this bike and have a good time. And I was not expecting to be impressed with the bike at all. And that was one of those ones that like I just got on. It was just so much fun to ride, and on paper I would have never even fucking considered that bike.
I think a lot of times a bike can be a lot of times a bike is made or I can't say this but like it's you can make or break by the components that are on it.
Yeah.
So like you can like for Trek, for some reason, like their $9,000 Trek Session like downhill bike was equipped with really crappy narrow bars that made it just feel awful. When you put like some bars that are a little bit wider, like more appropriate for downhill, like it felt great. But like I think the components you put on a bike are just as important as the frame itself.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's some key ones for me. Like, I think it's definitely a good wheel set, and which is really tough if you're trying to buy a budget bike. Don't worry about that. Just buy a bike and you can work into that later. But a really good wheel set, especially like good hubs, rear hub, especially, like that makes a big difference. For me, brakes is huge because I'm a big guy. But even when I wasn't, like wasn't as big as I am even right now, like I guess I'm even in my thinnest time, I'm still like over 200 pounds. So, but I think just the only way that you have crappy brakes is to buy better ones,
You know what? So when I rode that Raleigh Tokel, they came with like some really baseline Tektro brakes, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed the feel of those brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of blew my mind because like these, like I don't know how much they are, but like they come on like it was a budget brake setup, and
Right.
they had a pretty good feel on them. They weren't as powerful as a lot of other brakes, but just the fact that they felt good to me was almost more important.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that I'm a bigger guy, and you talk to any dude that's over 200 pounds, man, and like that there's a huge difference of what we consider a good brake compared to somebody else, and like in some cases, like for instance, using a Saint, which is like maybe a quote unquote downhill brake, but that's what it takes to really have good braking.
Oh, sure.
When you're a big guy, it's like there's no getting around it, and I think as a guy that didn't always have a lot of experience with other bikes other than the one that I was riding, so like the channels really kind of helped me with that. Like in the past, that was like when I say the only way you have crappy brakes is to buy a better pair, is like it's like for me that's the only way it was. Like I thought my brakes were awesome, and this just the upgrade bug made me buy new ones. And then whenever I bought better ones, I was like, holy shit. I remember the first time that I went from like to XT brakes, and I like bumped my rotors up. And I almost went over the bars like fucking 5 times on that ride because like they were just so sensitive. I didn't even understand that my brakes could be that good, And then another time, like years later, I was telling one of my buddies, "Oh, dude, you should definitely get hydraulic brakes. Here, ride mine." And because he had like like a pull brake system on his bikes or or whatever they are. And I was like trying to talk him into upgrading because I was like, dude, when you see somebody that's got a good skill set and you're like, dude, your equipment's holding you back. You know, it was kind of like one of those conversations. So I get on his bike, dude, and we go friggin' hauling ass down this hill, and I'm just coming into this corner like I would normally, and I yanked the brakes, and like they didn't do anything, you know. And that's like, you know, but for him, he was used to like riding like that. That's what was slowing him down. And for me, it was like I was so used to having a good set of brakes and being able to use that speed as fast as I could to get into there, just modulate a little bit and get out of it. And it was one of those moments in my life where I really was like, wow, brakes really do make a huge difference on your ride.
I absolutely. No, and like for me, like I came from BMX, and it was like, you know, I used brakes to slow down. So like learning how to use brakes in mountain biking was something that like took me a while, especially my front brake.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Like I would say it was only more in recent years I like started being particular about brakes. Only when like I felt like I was actually starting to be held back, but like at the time, like, you know, how they were set up, like it didn't really like bother me. It's just like whatever, it's a brake.
Yeah.
Like, they were never bled properly or anything.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, it's been 2 hours, man. I don't want to keep
Has
you
it?
up all night. Yeah, dude, it's been 2 hours. So, dude, it was awesome to talk to you. I would love to have you on another bike bar in the future. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with a lowly YouTuber like me.
No, this has been fun. Like I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely appreciate it. For all you guys listening after the fact, usually this is on every Sunday at 5 p.m. PST. Today we had a little delay of game. No big deal. If you want to listen to this podcast or as a podcast instead of just watching it live on YouTube, you can check it out on the Apple Play podcast store, the Google Play, the Apple Podcast, the SoundCloud, wherever you want to watch it at. Those are the places that it's at. I really, once again, like, thank you so much, Phil, for being on. Everybody out there that's listening, if you want more of this, I'm going to say it on my podcast. I can get away with on my podcast. Hit the fucking subscribe button, please. My analytics show 50% of you fuckers that are watching this shit aren't subscribed. That's bullshit. So hit the button. All right. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much. It only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one, bitches.
See you guys.